Welcome.
You are watching Line Screw 1.
Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Line Screw 1, howdy from Western Canada.
I want you guys to watch Steve Lehto's video about why you should not buy an RV. Now, he doesn't mean this literally. He means it more from a consumer advocacy point of view. After all, he's not one of these ambulance-chasing lawyers. He's actually a consumer advocate. So that's why he's one of my favorite YouTubers that's a lawyer on YouTube. So I want you to check out some of his points of view. Now, what I'm going to talk about isn't so much about a consumer advocacy about RV life, because obviously I do live full-time in my RV. But the difference is, I want you to know a differing point of view that's opposing to the fact that I do live in my RV, because I think you are entitled to know the truth about all this. It's not for everybody. Living in an RV has so many problems that are associated with it. Think of a house that you live in right now, or an apartment. Think of it driving down the road at 65 miles an hour and flexing with the wind all the time. Would you want your house to do that? No, you probably wouldn't. That's why RVs have problems. They flex, they move. That's the nature of the beast. They're also very expensive to fix sometimes. And if they leak and you don't catch it soon, well, they get rot. And rot is really, really expensive to fix. So it's not for everybody. As Steve Lehto has talked about the consumer issues involved with the manufacturing process and all the typical liability and consumer issues with an RV, I'm talking more about the social aspects that are going to affect you when you buy a new or even a used RV. Now, for most people, an RV is just a pleasure vehicle. It's like a second or third vehicle, and you just use it for recreation. And for most people, it works out just fine. But if you want to be a full-time nomad like me, where you're living in the damn thing all the time, it's problematic at times. I personally like it only because I have enough resources to tackle all the problems that happen. For example, I've had leaks. I've had my water heater go many times. I've had to replace the thermostat, the toilet, the tires, brakes. The list goes on and on. This is not a trouble-free type of lifestyle. No, not at all. It's slightly worse than if you actually owned a home. And here's the biggest problem. You don't own the land underneath your RV. So the appreciation that you may get on the asset isn't there if you owned an actual home, for example. An RV is a depreciating asset, and that's just the way it is, because after all, it's just a vehicle. So the most important thing to go into this entire owning an RV debacle is that you have to realize it's going to cost you some money. If you're willing to spend that money, God bless you. You're going to be just like me, and you're going to be willing to deal with the pits and the perils involved, and you're going to open your wallet up and just suck it up and fix whatever problem as it occurs. Or you're going to be like some of the other RVers that I know that have even more money than I do, and I don't have a lot. I'm just kind of a middle earner kind of person. What you're going to do is you're going to always flip your RVs every 2-3 years. You're going to trade. And guess what? The dealers love people like you because they're going to rip you on the trade and they're going to rip you on the sale of your new RV. But here's the good news. You're actually going to get a brand new RV every 3 years. And if you can afford that, good for you. Unless you get one of those defective RVs that Steve Lehto talks about, you probably will do all right. About the only thing me and Steve Lehto have in common is that I consumer advocate against you spending money on those RV nomads you see on YouTube that want you to give them money. I tell people, don't give people money, and that includes myself as an RV nomad. Don't send me money. Don't send all those other young people that could actually have a job, but they're on YouTube as an RV nomad trying to pretend that it is sunshine and lollipops and just literally rainbows of joy will fall from the heavens if you are also an RV nomad. It's a complete lie. Don't believe it at all. And there's millions and millions of views from thousands of RV nomads out there trying to tell you that living in an RV full-time is your saving grace. It's actually not. But if you got thousands of dollars extra a month to be a nomad, yeah, you might come out ahead if you live in an expensive town like, say, Vancouver, where I'm from, Seattle, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Yeah, it's expensive to live in those cities on the West Coast. So if you lived in an RV and got out of town, you might save some money living in your RV. But still, you're giving up a few things. Living in your RV means you're not going to always be next to those great cultural events. You're not always going to be next to that sporting event you want to see or that rock concert. Let's face it, they don't want you living in your RV in downtown San Francisco. No, they don't. And there's a reason for that. People in cities actually want a tax base. They don't want people living in their RV because they can't property tax you. That's the whole deal. And in fact, you can't even buy property in many places and put your RV and live in it full time because they want you to develop the land to build an even greater tax base. So always be aware of that. It's not that simple. RV life is just like living in a regular house because let's face it, that's the way I've been living. I live in my RV like I live in a $1 million or $2 million house. I treat it like a dwelling. And I leave it, I jump on planes, I've gone RVing in New Zealand, I've flown to Hawaii, Los Angeles, many, many times. I go to sporting events, rock concerts, I do a regular lifestyle. I watch TV, I try to be informed, I have internet, I have security cameras. I live just like you do, but it costs money to do that. But occasionally I do save a few dollars. I don't save a lot, but I do save a few dollars. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, what if I just hide in the desert in Quartzsite all year or down in Slab City and just hide and save the money? Well, if you can tolerate the heat in the summer and you can tolerate the isolation, maybe hiding in the forests of Canada where I'm right now in my undisclosed location, yeah, you might like that. But that's definitely not for everybody. Just like buying an RV is not for everybody. Let's face it, humans are social animals, and hiding all the time just to save a few bucks is not healthy in the end. I mean, really, do you want to be the Ted Kaczynski of RV life? That's what hiding out trying to save a few bucks. I know guys like Bob Wells will tell you how great it is to live in your van or your RV on $700 a month. It's not really feasible and it's not really healthy. So I'm warning you, don't necessarily buy an RV. It's not for everybody. Now, just like Steve Lehto's video, he's actually not telling you, don't ever buy, none of you, forbidden. No, it's not like that, and I'm not saying that either. If you can afford it, do it. There's no reason why you shouldn't do it if you can afford it. But always remember, it's not perfect. It's just like any other lifestyle. It's like living in a penthouse suite in New York City. That's not for everybody either. Just like living on a sailboat isn't for everybody either. So that's my thoughts on RV living. It's expensive at times. It's not perfect. It's not for everybody. Look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a priest. I'm not your mom. I'm not your dad. So you do whichever you want. But remember, it's not as cheap as other people tell you it's going to be. And it's definitely not as good as that salesman who's trying to sell you a new or used RV. It's not that good. Don't believe salespeople. Salespeople have a different agenda. They want to sell. I don't want to sell you anything. I just want to tell you the truth. So I figured it was time for me to balance it all out, because that's what my channel's all about. Because my channel's all about telling you things you might not want to hear, and even things that are contrary to the way that I'm living, because I believe you have a fundamental right to know the truth. That's just how I roll. So in the meantime, folks, you stay safe and you keep your wheels in the ground, and You put your comments down below on what you think about living in your RV full-time or even buying an RV. Hey, but I will say this, and I've done videos on it before. If you're only going to use your RV for 2 to 4 weeks a year, just rent one. You'll be better off, and you'll always have the most recent model. Crunch the numbers, and you'll probably agree with me. So, in the meantime, folks, stay safe, keep your wheels in the ground, and I will talk to you soon. Over and out.
I got you, I got you.